Hello, and welcome to Five Things Friday UK edition. It's Friday. So I'm Alex. I help people who sell to retailers maintain their thought leadership at the world's largest conferences. And I'm joined by my stupendous, marvelous, we'll go for marvelous co-host, Simone Ollerman, co-founder of Needed for Tonight. Hello, Simone.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. Happy it's Friday.
Oh, it's Friday. I have to say, Simone, I think I did your Magnum piece caused such ripples in the ice cream industry that the agency that's responsible for the amazing success reached out to myself. And hopefully we're going to have I think he's the founder CEO. I don't know, maybe just the CEO come on the show and talk about, all those amazing activations that Magnum has done. So one to watch.
Very, very cool. They've just been so amazing, so creative. So definitely one to watch.
Okay, so let's get straight into it. Top 5 things. I think there's going to be about 6 topics, but we fit them into 5 buckets. Okay, Simone, why don't you kick us off with the first one?
Yes. So I have been reading on not only River Island, but also Claire's accessories and their struggles. Now, I don't want to say that the high street's dead, but I am going to say that it does feel like it's on life support. We've seen River Island, sad. We've seen River Island is now facing a possible collapse. And then we've got Claire's accessories. Their parent company has filed for bankruptcy. These 2 retailers for me were a bit of a statement of my childhood. Claire's accessories was the one that I went to in primary school to first get my ears pierced, and so did all. Claire's accessories, whenever I'd go shopping with my mum and dad, just for a little bit of context, you'd go in and that was like the one shop I'd be like, I want to go to Claire's accessories. Like, it really was an experience for children and teenagers growing up. And of course, River Island was also a quite cool place to shop as well. But yeah, I mean, both have just made me think of just how this is obviously something bigger in retail, and how I guess retail brands lose, maybe not, it's not always tied to the product that's filled, but actually it's because that the stage has changed and they haven't. We've seen Claire's as, I think, we've filed for bankruptcy twice, I think I was reading, and River Island at the minute, they are fighting for their life in court, and they're really hoping to save jobs and restructure leases before it hits administration. We've also seen this as well with Nift, with some of our shop partners over the past year. Not necessarily brands going into administration, but a lot of shop closures, and just because people can't afford it. And I think I was just thinking, I don't think, and this isn't in all cases, but I think it's not always that people don't want accessories or good fashion. But I think, as we've discussed many times, I think what's happened is retail has become so context dependent, and many brands haven't evolved their physical presence or their storytelling in time. And we've really seen all of these incredible brands really rise up over the past few years. We've discussed on this podcast, but we've seen some of the bigger players like River Island, who have just been left behind. And personally, I don't have all the answers, but I don't think that the problem is the product in all cases. I think it's where and how and with whom the products show up with. We've chatted so much about physical retail, really having a cultural moment with all of these pop-ups and the importance of community. And I think that's where a lot of these brands have gone wrong. It's interesting, somebody this week used an interesting term called dead shelf syndrome. I've never heard of this term before. I was like, but that's a term that's really relevant to, I think, where retail is right now. And that again comes back to that relevance doesn't always come from new stock. It comes from, as mentioned, the stage that you set. Yeah. And of course, if that stage disappears, then so does your place in culture. And I think this term, dead shelf syndrome, don't know why tongue twister saying that, it refers to things like it might be the wrong location or the wrong moment, but I think the big one is it's lacking cultural or community alignment. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in retail, which is very sad. So that was my depressing topic for today.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you missed there's another one that's unfortunately going bust. They're called eBuyer, which is the UK's second largest electronics provider. And it is really sad because River Island was the first company that was my first retail job. I worked there like most people in the UK. First jobs are somewhere in retail.
Yeah.
And I loved working at River Island. I thought it was super, super cool. Left a great mark with me. But that cultural relevance part, I think we're getting to a part where if you're not investing in maintaining relevance, then that is going to outpace your profit. That is going to outpace your margin. And as sad it is, so this isn't, it is a sad thing that these great British brands are struggling to maintain their relevance. And it's not one of what you were saying, lack of product, or it's just the fact that there's 10 other more relevant brands out there that are stealing your customers. And so sad to see, but a sign of our times. And one of those brands that, if you like, are still doing well and expanding into the UK is Mango. So Mango expanding their teen range in the UK. And I think in the US, I think what the US show that we did last week or whenever it was, we were talking about how Walmart is expanding the teen range as well, or teenies. And there's a bit of an age gap between in the UK what we class as teenagers, but ultimately teenagers feel underrepresented when it comes to clothing. So they maybe get adult clothing that is not age appropriate for young girls, or they get cutesy teddy bears that's not age appropriate for teenagers. And so there's this sort of little gap in the middle between the upper echelons of teenagers and the younger years, but it's a segment in itself. And Mango's addressing that in the UK specifically. And interesting enough, Walmart is doing the same in the US. So it's a growth trend. I think we'll see more age appropriate clothing for kids specifically, because I think there's been a lot of backlash to, certain items of clothing not being age appropriate. Yeah. And I think this is a step in that direction, giving parents or teenagers more choice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a talk at school a couple of months ago, and it was a lot of teenagers.
Your school, like your old school or something?
Not my old school, called St. Francis Holland in central London. It was a girls' school, and I was chatting to some of the teenage girls, and they said exactly this. And they said, I think they loved like Urban Outfitters, but sometimes actually Urban Outfitters, it might not be appropriate, but actually it's too big for them as well, because they're still, they're not fully developed. And they were saying, there's not enough clothes for teenagers. So it's really interesting that this has happened, and clearly needed as well.
Yeah, and I think this is one of my big bets. I think athleisure people are bored of athleisure and going to JD Sports and getting a tracksuit. And recently, anyway, I'm not going to go off. I'll go off on a tangent. Be there for an hour. Okay, moving on. Other news. Second-hand market. I mean, listen, the UK is always led. The car boot sale is a retail experience to its own, uniquely British in that. And so thrift, secondhand stores, I think the UK has always led. It's just never seen as this sort of greater transformation of the industry, the circular economy, moving into sustainability. But the good news is the UK is leading in this area. It's set to double from 29.9 billion to 50.9 billion. This is specifically in the homeware market. You can see it. I don't know if that's specifically for the UK or across Europe. I'm just trying to read it as we go. But anyway, it's the good news is it's on the up. It's going cross category. So you don't have to go out 8 a.m. on a Sunday to that cold car park. You can still do that. There are now, upmarket recycled items. Lots of platforms are now looking to address that element. And specifically for Gen Z moving out of home, getting their first places, they're not looking to go out and buy new. They're looking to recycle or upcycle. And so the data, the trend is showing, there you go. Second-hand market surge is 4.8 billion in online sales. So it's surging online. I'm hoping people are still going to flea markets. I'm sure they will do, or car boot sales. But digital is now where it's at for this new generation. And I think, as it says in this article here on Common Share, buy items, it's changing consumer habits. And I think this lends itself to what we were just talking about in the first thing. You either adapt or you get left behind.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, moving on, bringing it home for our last two elements.
Yes, an interesting topic. I feel like I always bring a wacky topic to the table where you look at me and you're like, what?
Earplugs? Surely what?
But hear me out. So I'm always looking at what the Gen Z hype is. I'm not Gen Z, but I always find that, what are they shopping? What are they obsessed with? And I always find that I find really weird and exciting and unexpected things that they're spending on. And I think we've discussed this before. It's less about logos and traditional state, it's all about self-expression. And I came across jewelry and earplug in the same sentence. I was reading an article in, I think it was in Vogue, and it was saying that Gen Z jewelry trends are all about chaotic customization, like thinking things like charms, like mood matching, and really like these kind of layered pieces that almost have been compared to like DIY. And it's less about obviously like gold and silver or diamonds, and it's more personal, I think. And these kind of jewelries are really becoming like these major identity tools. But with the earplugs, I know Loop is, I think there's other brands, but Loop is the main.
Look, it is for Loop.
And they're obviously, look, they're a brand that's making hearing protection.
€50 or pounds.
And they've turned earplugs into fashion accessories. They were the F1, Coachella, Glastonbury. And as you can see, they actually look, obviously they look quite...
I'm actually thinking of gangs.
Oh, there we go. But they actually look quite sleek, and they come in lots of different colours as well. But again, it's this functional and fashionable as a topic, and this crossover I think we're seeing everywhere. Like, I think Gen Z, obviously they are buying it for safety, but it's a part of the fit. They clearly look cool and have become really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think this was quite good timing because very different, but again, this kind of crossover between functional and cool is Tala have been, with incredible marketing, really, really, really great. They have been hinting at, I mean, I thought it was scuba wear, but I think it's actually more, I think you described it as leisure wear 2.0, which it is. I think it's came from scuba materials to create this ultra leisure wear. People's been going crazy. I mean, I will admit, at first I thought it was just purely for scuba diving and everybody was getting tipped. And I was thinking, I bet half these people don't scuba dive. But I don't actually think it is for that. But again, they've created a really amazing hype. And again, it's this is the kind of thing that people are caring about, their customization, I think people are loving. But this wellness gear that fits the aesthetic, and then of course like Loop are doing anything that's really being able to be tied into a moment, festivals and niche collabs. So yeah, that was mine. And I guess just one last thing on that as well is I was then thinking about, obviously Nift is a brand, but we're not a physical product. And if I was a brand and I was thinking, what do I launch next?
Yeah,
I think I would then think maybe I need to flip that and be like, actually, where should my existing products show up instead? Because as we've spoke about so much, these are the brands that are really winning. And I think, some of these more bigger retailers that are being left behind, that's the kind of thing that they need to be thinking about. So that was my last thought of today.
Yeah, listen, I love listening to you talk about these things because you bring such a diverse way of thinking that when I then put it into my global enterprise mind, I'm like, okay, I totally get it. And the one thing about Gen Z is this self-expression and self-care. Both brands, like I know, how do I address it? So basically looking after your health in your ears and thinking about something that's going to affect or have an impact on you in your 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But, anyone who's been to a gig or a concert or a rave or a club or F1 sports knows that you still feel everything, but you don't need to blow out your ears to get. Say again?
Oh no, I just said it's true.
Yeah, you don't need to go. But for me, what a generation to say, you know what? We're going to put ourselves first. We're going to, from a community perspective, we are going to be open to looking after ourselves. And, in terms of Tala, this material ultimately has a longer shelf life. It's like double the thickness of normal leggings or normal leisure wear, keeps everything in. So again, a wonderful example of self-expression, community, and Tala have been phenomenal at building that community. And maybe you can know, they don't actually have physical stores, do they?
They do. They opened one fairly recently in the last couple of months. It was, I think it's Carnaby Street.
Okay, they're not on the NIF network yet? Okay, not yet. Watch this. Go on, Tala. What are you waiting for? Anyway, okay, listen, Simone, it's been an absolute blast. We'll keep it to our 15 minutes or just over thing. Thank you so much. And hopefully, same time, same place next week.